Hello there everyone, how are you doing today? Today we'll be reading a creepypasta, Pokémon Lost Silver. If you enjoy what I do, please like and subscribe, and check me out at the websites under the names listed here. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Julius Productions. Sit down, get comfy, and await your horror. Replay my crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her the save went dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my silver version, so all I have is my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to my nearest GameStop and bought myself a used silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game that they have for the Game Boy Color. $10, fairly cheap. I went home and I started it up for a nostalgic trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you need to read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on, and the same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over, and all of the buttons, eventually, the logo vanished, and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game, in a previous saved file, which was odd as I was expecting all of these carts to have been wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyway. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile, and apparently he had 999.99 hours put into the game, with all 16 badges, maximum amount of Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he apparently had a Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used the Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns, and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking that this must be some cruel joke by the person who played this game last. But I decided to check the profiles of those Pokemon anyway. As expected, there were different letters of the unknown, all level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be Cyndaquil. Mind you, this is before there were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that, despite my volume being at maxed, none of the Pokemon he had said their usual cries. Just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at what appears to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if just leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but I can't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokémon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black, and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized that, oh so haunting melody. I heard to be the theme you hear when you listen at the radio of Alph Ruins, where the unknown were at. I immediately realized that this wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room, and I would need flash. Before I took care of that, though, I immediately checked my Pokégear to change the radio to something more pleasant. But it turns out that there was no radio card, or even a phone, nor time cards. There was only a map card, in which Gold, the player character named ... from earlier, and I will call him Gold from now on. I was just walking in the midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has flash, so I turned off my Pokégear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any message saying hurry, has used flash or anything like that. The room just became lit, just like that. The room is lit, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling, blood red, with a linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up or down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until finally I made it to the end. And there appeared to be a sign. I read the sign, which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I do not know what it was asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climbed sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with the not as creepy Pokéflute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath, and I used flash again. Suddenly it said that Hurry has fainted, which was odd since I recall there was no status conditions like poison on them, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon are there, but instead all replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out the unknown. My then team of unknown spelled, "He died." Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of the room were gray bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to the one in Pokémon Red and Blue. I've walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game, and some sadistic heck sold it to GameStop. However, My curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of Gold again, only to find out that the sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seemed to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, it also now said that he has 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning around animation. Instead of flying up, though, my character spun downwards, downwards slowly, as if sinking. After that scream, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Gold is colored differently now. Instead of the usual red color he dons, he apparently is completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colorless Game Boy games, placed him into a colored background of Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now he is white as his overworld sprite. He lost his legs, and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says that he now has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me, as this change of number seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokémon, which this time contains 5 unknowns, and 1 level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown are this time leveled 15, and spelled out, dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only a half of the sprites. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye, and it only has 1 attack, Perish Song. The area I was in itself was the Sprout Tower with the immobile pillar as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually, I finally encountered some generic men and women NPCs. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long slantish pillar in the middle. They were all also whites, and nothing happens when I try to speak to them. I just kept on going north, until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in a battle. The music starts again, which sounds like the unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle, back sprites, matches his front one with the bloody eyes and white skin and lack of arms, while red sprites was the same as before in GSC, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he had no name, and both of us only have 1 Pokemon each, which is very weird as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise and animation was a little different, as the sound it made sounded like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255, and his sprite seems sad, and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight, attack, Pokemon, run menu, I was only given the option to use the attacks. Since Celebi only has 1, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokémon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle continued without me. Also note, there were no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level, and Boost as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happens, as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a crud ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted, except in the text it said, Celebi has died. And instead of the ordinary drop off the screen animation, the Celebi Brack sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu is still up even with Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards it said, Pikachu has died, with a slow, fade-out animation. Apparently, I was the winner, as the transparent red sprite showed up and said, At that point, I just freaked out, as that transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point, and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld with another change to the gold sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time, the only thing remains of him was his head. With the transparent skin, the head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. It now stated that he has 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokémon. They were all level 20 Shiny Unknown, which spelled out, no more. I was now what I know to be next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in New Bark Town. Maybe finally I get to play this game properly. But who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic heck must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was awaiting down there. Note I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving, his transparent limbs at all, just floating, like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except Mom isn't home. After failing to interact with anything in the room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, the door leading outside at the south didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through it to a void. I continued moving south to see what the heck was going on. My house vanished as I headed south into the void. It was creepy, as when I entered the void, the outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area, and Gold's sprite turned black-red, transparent again. I continued south without thinking or stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye forever," notably with a space in between the forever and dots, and vanished. As that happened, it said, "Huh?" Used nightmare, which at that point, I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small, hollowed-out room, surrounded by graves earlier. Or at least say I was back there. There's no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved, not even wall-bumping noise. I checked my trainer profile, with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I have 0, and all the pictures from the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokémon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase that I dared to read. "I'm dead." As soon as I moved back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out what exactly that room was when the final text was said. R.I.P. That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokémon master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text, no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game, and the same thing happened, at which I then decided it's finally time to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation have folktales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.